The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
I am Emily Swallow, also known as the Armorer on The Mandalorian. And I'm just giving a little shout out to the Secrets of Star Wars podcast because this is the way.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away. From movies and books, television shows, and more, we're looking at the deeper themes and meanings found in the Star Wars universe. And this week, we're discussing a pretty old television show, the 1985 animated cartoon Star Wars Droids, The Adventures of R2-D2 and C-3PO. Be sure to follow The Secrets of Star Wars on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. And you can find us on social media. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, on X, where we are at SQPN, or on Instagram, where we are at StarQuest Network. And of course, be sure to get your official Secrets of Star Wars gear at sqpn.com/merch. I'm Thomas Salerno, and joining me tonight is Patrick Mason. Hello, Pat.
Howdy, Thomas.
Okay, so I've got to ask to start off, was this a show you watched or grew up on as a kid?
I don't remember watching it as a kid. I do remember encountering it sometime in my college years and watching some of it. I think probably I encountered it as a DVD at a Hastings or a Best Buy or a Fry's, one of those. Right, I think Best Buy is still around, but a lot of the other stuff is not around anymore. But
Best Buy's around, but they don't sell movies anymore.
Yeah. It's mostly appliances, I guess.
Yeah. My brother told me he just visited a Best Buy and told me that it's televisions and Magic the Gathering cards, and that's pretty much it.
Oh, wow. Okay. But yeah, I don't think I ever watched this as a kid. This came out in 85, 86. I was 2 to 3 at that time. So I was watching, like Sesame Street.
Yeah.
This would have been a little beyond me.
Yeah, like I am not old enough to have seen it when it came out, but we had the VHS tape at home.
Oh.
It was a VHS tape of the second arc of the show. It was called The Pirates and the Prince.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then we had another VHS tape of the show we're going to talk about next time, Ewoks. So I've definitely seen both of these shows as a kid. My brother and I watched these VHS tapes over and over again. And so the only episodes I had seen before watching the show again for this recording was that middle arc of the show.
Oh,
it takes place on the planet Tamazan. And it was so weird watching it again because like so many things that I remembered that I knew and could quote verbatim because I could see it. I'd seen it so many times. The only thing that was different, I think in the 1990s VHS tape, they took out most of the silly music. So like,
oh no.
So like,
that's like one of the best parts of the show.
That's interesting because as I watched it now with the music included, it started to irritate me. I'm like, the VHS tape I remember had put more Star Wars-y music over the soundtrack. Yeah. No, this was like solid 80s semi-synth techno, sci-fi, robots are involved. Music. Yeah. it's so like you can tell exactly
there's like 4 tracks total, and it's, the main theme that they use whenever they're doing stuff. There's the silly theme, there's the, oh, these are bad guys, and then there's like the action theme, and that's it. And it's just those 4 over on loop.
Yeah. Speaking of the music, though, what did you? I don't think I'd ever heard it before. That intro song was
the intro song. It was like Star Wars meets Magic School Bus is what it was like.
Now, apparently, that theme is performed by Stuart Copeland of The Police.
Yeah. And that doesn't, for some reason, that doesn't shock me. It's like an 80s cartoon theme intro. They had like major stars do so many, like Lionel Richie did the Magic School Bus. And I think it's Lionel Richie. And it's like, it caught me off guard, but it really didn't, because I was like, oh, this is just so 80s. Like, it just like screams 1980s. And of course, it's going to be stuck in my head for the next, 20, 40 days.
It definitely is. Yeah. And another thing that marks it out as like an 80s cartoon is all those silly animation errors.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Color problems, or people's features getting stuck into like a weird face, for a second.
Yep.
Very strange.
Yeah. Like, parts where you're like, wait, were his lips supposed to be moving, or are they not? Is he a robot? I don't know. Yeah.
I did like, though, in terms of like animation stuff, I thought that a lot of the original ships, like the ships that weren't Star Wars ships that we'd seen already, because there are TIE fighters and A-Wings and stuff, but I thought a lot of the original ships actually fit the Star Wars design language very well.
I have to say that it struck me as a progenitor for a lot of the stuff we see, especially now in the Disney era, where you have so much more Star Wars content than you did, and they're sort of expanding into all the other areas of the galaxy we never really seen before. I feel like all of this stuff fits in perfect. Like, you could see like the Mandalorian walking into any of these sets if they were, generated in real life, and it would just fit. Like, it would just work. And I think that was really, I don't know. I don't know if that, like, it meant, I think, that you had a really ingenious crew working with George at some point, and saying, well, what should this stuff look like, and what should that stuff look like? Because I think this animation style, the thing I've seen it most, the thing I think it looks the most like is Heavy Metal. Have you ever seen the original Heavy Metal?
No, I've heard of it. I have not seen it.
I don't necessarily recommend it, especially for family friendliness. It is not family friendly. like flat out, period. It is an interesting set of story vignettes that follow around kind of an artifact. And it is sort of a space drama saga sort of thing. But it's actually in a much grittier and darker universe than the Star Wars universe. And I was a little worried when I started seeing the animation that that's what I was going to get. And it ended up keeping kind of the same, it has a lot of levity and lightness, because obviously it's C-3PO and R2-D2, I mean, let's face it, they're the comic relief for a lot of, for a lot of Star Wars. But it keeps kind of the lightness and levity of the universe as well. Not that Star Wars can't be a very dark place, but it's dark in a different sort of way. It's not the same. It's usually not the same kind of gritty dark that kind of Heavy Metal is, and some of the other stuff. But it was so uncanny. You'd see the ships come in and you'd be like, yep, that belongs. Like, it just, that's Star Wars. Like, it doesn't strike me as, they robbed Star Trek or they pulled something from some other 80s era. Like, it's, except for the Cylons that show up every once in a while.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed how much of the ships were clearly workaday ships, not hero ships. Like, we're clearly in a part of the galaxy where, like, okay, there's a lot of trade and freight going back and forth, and like these are kind of like, you know, the trucks you see on the highway kind of ships, you know, like, and that they're very functional. You know, there's not a lot of you know, flashy kind of ship designs. Yeah.
You're not seeing a bunch of Ferraris and Maseratis here. This is these are Peterbilts and Mack trucks.
Yep. Yeah. Oldsmobile of Star Wars. Yep.
Yes. That's a Datsun. It's a 400-year-old Starship.
And one thing about the design of props and droids and stuff that was interesting is that, okay, since this is an 80s kid show, they're not allowed to have guns. So they've removed all the blasters and replaced them. Okay, most bad guys and good guys in the show have these Star Trek looking, like, they look like phasers.
They look like phasers, yeah.
They look like hand phasers.
Yep.
And then the stormtroopers have these almost like staff weapons from Stargate SG-1. They've got, you know, these spears that shoot. So that's, I almost wonder if that's ripping off a Macquarie Stormtrooper concept art where he gives them.
I feel like it is. Like, I feel like I've seen, and definitely Sandtroopers, right? Those Sandtroopers almost always have some sort of spear kind of a thing. But it seemed like all of the Stormtroopers we see have that sort of spear blaster combination. And you know, it's right. It has all those kind of 80s show rules about it. Like, so no guns, no drugs. You know, drugs are bad if it ever comes up. There always has to be like a distinct good and evil, and there always has to be a moral or a lesson at the end of the day.
Yeah. Knowing is half the battle. Yeah.
Yes. G.I. Joe. Yeah.
But yeah, it has all these conventions, and yet I found it, at least most of it, wildly entertaining.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Like, I watched it with my kids, and they had a lot of fun with it.
Oh, good, yeah.
They were honestly a little more glued to the TV than I was.
And I'm gonna get to Anthony Daniels in a second, but some of these voice actors, I could tell, were having a blast. Especially some of the people who were playing like alien muscle. You know, like the one guy from the middle arc, Yorpo. I could tell that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He just kind of, yes. So what? You just see him in the studio. So what? You just make like Abe noises. Yeah, but like Abe combined with like a bull, maybe
with a dog.
Okay. Yeah. Just do your best. Just do your best.
Yeah. But you could totally like many Star Wars aliens and droids, you could kind of tell what Yorpo would have been saying in English. Yep. If he could talk. Like, you could kind of, quote unquote, understand it because of the expressiveness of the character. I thought he was funny muscle. I wanted to see that character more, but they kind of left him on the planet with that other guy. But yeah, for me though, Anthony Daniels had to be the highlight of this. He's just great. He puts as much into this performance as he did into any of the live action 3PO performances, I think.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things I've always loved about Anthony Daniels is like he is, and I think he understands C-3PO has always kind of been the butt of the joke in a lot of ways. But it doesn't diminish him. Like, he never wrote a book that said, you know, I'm not Spock, right? Like,
no, he wrote a book called I Am
C-3PO. Yeah. Which, I mean, eventually Leonard Nimoy wrote a book that said I am Spock. To kind of, you know, counteract that. That's or maybe he didn't write a book. He did that on an interview or something.
No, I think he did. I think I've seen it on Amazon or something. I am Spock. Yeah.
But he just owns it, and he's always owned it. Like, if whatever he's in that he's doing C-3PO, if you ever get to see him at a conference, if you ever meet him or get something signed by him, he's like, he basically has kind of merged the personalities together as much as you can without becoming Jim Carrey, right? Without going completely off the deep end. And so it's always, you always know you're going to get a good performance out of him. It's very similar to the guy who played Jafar in Aladdin, because he voice acted Jafar in literally everything they produced, I think, including the Broadway show, if I remember correctly.
Oh, I wonder then if he was Jafar in Kingdom Hearts too. The video.
I'm pretty sure there was some point where it cut off where he didn't do it after that, but it was actually pretty recently. It was like last 5 years or so.
Oh, okay. Then he.
I think maybe
the
live action Jafar or live action Aladdin movie was like the first Jafar that wasn't him, if I remember right. Yeah.
Talk about dedication to a character.
Right.
or even James Earl Jones never did every iteration of Vader that we've seen. There were a ton of video games where it wasn't him.
Yep.
Yeah, it was cool too to see. We got 2 cameos from, I believe, just 2 from other Star Wars characters that we know, both bounty hunters, Boba Fett and IG-88. So that was fun. I liked that Boba Fett has a droid sidekick, BL-17.
Yes, that was pretty funny.
If they do another season of Book of Boba Fett, we've got to see that guy.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
Here's my question. I think the burning question. I know we're just gonna go all over the place. I'm sorry.
Yep.
It's gonna be like, how much of this is any of this canon? Like, is any of this? Is it all legends? Is it like where do we have anything on that?
Okay, I did some research on this.
Okay,
some of this was used in the prequels. Okay, like names. There was that Bunta speeder race.
Yes.
Like the Bunta Eve pod racer.
Right.
Race. And there also, the pirate base is on Bogdan, which is the same place where Jango Fett says he was recruited by Darth Tyrannus.
Okay.
So some names from this show made it into the prequels, which was very interesting. Also, that bad guy for the latter half of the show, what's his name? The Imperial. Admiral Screed.
Yeah.
He's been canonized recently, both in comic books and in novels, as a very minor Imperial. So yeah, some of this stuff has made it into canon.
Okay.
I really like. Maybe it's just my nostalgia from watching the Tamazan arc as a kid, but I want to see Tamazan canonized. I like that planet. I like those aliens. They're fun.
Right, and I feel like most of it you could very easily say, yeah, it's part of the problem you have is that at the end of episode 3 you have 3PO and R2 being gifted to
Captain Ramus
Antilles. Well, and I thought they go with they go with Antilles, they don't go with Leia's dad or adopted father.
He specifically
Jimmy Smits Organa. Sorry.
No, yeah, he's kind of like, the way I always took it is like he's like their overmaster, because like he tells Captain Antilles, hey, wipe the protocol droid's mind and get them cleaned up. So yeah.
So if you had them kind of like somehow separated and then go off on their own after that, and then somehow come back into the service of Antilles, like maybe he finds them later. Like this could all just be part of, their story. I
mean, if Obi-Wan can leave Tatooine for some crazy jaunt with Princess Leia, then it's possible.
Exactly. Like they've done, as crazy things with the current, in the last 5 years with the TV shows. But yeah, I do really want to see some of this stuff. And honestly, it feels like they've pulled in. I feel like they've pulled in more somehow. I feel it's just some of the sets, some of the speeder designs and the ship designs, at least, if not directly being used, then being, jumping points for, okay, I'm going to design something like this kind of a deal.
Yeah, I could have, at one point I thought I had to rewind it. I'm like, did the Razor Crest just fly by? And no, it was some other ship, but it went by so fast that my brain registered it as the Razor Crest.
Yeah. I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. And another name that hadn't really been established in Star Wars lore yet. There's that location, that region of space. They call it the Cloak of Sith. That was cool.
Yes.
The name Sith name dropped.
Yep.
Before, like, I think like the only other place it was really referenced was in like some ancillary like material after the original trilogy came out that said Darth Vader was the Lord of the Sith. And like, yeah, it was just so weird. I'm like, ooh, like they could do something with that. Now there's a region of space called the Cloak of the Sith. They need to bring that back.
Yeah. That's where the rune planet is with the rune stones. Spelled R-O-O-N.
R-O-O-N, yeah. Rune stones. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and their master at that point is a guy whose name has the preposterous name of Mungo Baobab.
Yeah.
And I'm like the trees? Baobab trees? I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah, Mungo
Baobab. Master Mungo. It's just like...
Yes.
When I heard that there was going to be a guy called him, I was expecting like an alien, but he's just a normal human.
Right, yeah. Yeah, you're like, huh, okay. And apparently he works for a whole bunch of other people named Baobab. And you're like,
yeah.
Okay.
The one character I couldn't stand, though, was that clown droid.
Yes.
In that one episode.
Yes.
That's an 80s thing, too. Have the funny character who's really, like, eye-gougingly obnoxious.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love... That was such a great gag on two levels because you have the introduction of a character who is somehow more annoying than C-3PO, right? And you have the person he is annoying the most in the show is C-3PO.
Yeah.
Like R2-D2 turns him, like, sets him back up and turns him back online after he gets, like, knocked out. And C-3PO's, R2, how could you have done this to me? Just like, oh, it's so good.
Probably my favorite 3PO line in the whole show is it's in the Tamazan arc when he's having that day when everything goes wrong, and he says, "Days like this make me think I was manufactured under a bad sign." Like he believes in astrological signs.
Yes. Well, and he has so many quotes like that where you're just like, huh? Like, oh, my fragile circuits, or, you know, it's like, oh, I'm dizzy. And I'm like, you don't have that concept. You're a droid.
Maybe just gyroscopes are out of alignment or something. I don't know.
Yep.
Like, yeah. I like, and they did a good job because obviously you're thinking like 3PO, like, at the same, okay, in the live action stuff, 3PO for a droid that has no facial expression, Anthony Daniels is able to use his body language to make 3PO expressive. I mean, that's not surprising because Anthony Daniels was originally a mime actor.
Okay.
So he knows how to use his body language for expressiveness. But in this, they went for literally just giving him facial expression because it's an animated show. Yeah. And eyes that look around. And...
Yeah, he's got pupils and they move. Yeah.
And he's much more flexible.
Yes.
He can run like Usain Bolt sometimes and like, he can
run and do karate and I learned how to do this stuff.
Fine.
That's right. Yeah.
He's doing karate stuff.
Yeah. And it's so funny because he has all the expressions and all of the other droids in the show don't, right? They're still like their faces don't move like he does. And it's honestly, there's a couple times where it's like, okay, this is just weird. Like, I don't know why they went this route, but like I do because it makes it easier.
The one thing where I was like, no, show, don't go there. Really don't go there is in the final 1 hour television special. Where they go to this planet. This planet is invaded by this droid called the Great Heap. It's like a big, like amalgamated droid, and and that has a big furnace inside that makes it go. It looks like an evil version of like a Thomas the Tank Engine train, because it has a face. It's like horrifying.
Oh yeah,
and it's like, but basically it powers itself by taking astromechs and sucking all their life out like a vampire. But the weirdest thing is that before it does that, it keeps its astromechs in a quote unquote harem.
Yeah,
and that has very sinister connotations, because it's like, I'm like, oh no, I'm like, my mind doesn't want to go, because of it's draining them, and I'm like, why did you call it a droid harem? It's so weird.
Yeah,
I couldn't get over that. I was like, this is a kid show.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that R2D2 finds love within there.
A pink astromech.
Yes.
They don't give it a name in the show, but apparently it does have a name. But I forgot it. But who has high heels?
Yep.
You see it on its astromech feet. It has high heels.
High heels.
And I did like all the different types of astromech there were. They got really creative
cool.
with like iterating on the basic astromech design. Yeah, that was cool. In Clone Wars, they started to do that a little, giving like many different types of astromech. But yeah, the astromech harem was very weird.
That was weird, yeah.
I'm like, I never want that referred to again. Apparently, I did some digging. The Great Heap is referred to again. Apparently, he's extra galactic. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, the Great Heap is referred to obliquely in the New Jedi Order books. Apparently, like his race of self-assembling robots pushed the Yuzhan Vong out of their galaxy.
Oh.
And that's why they're like invading the main galaxy. Part of the reason, anyway.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, that's really interesting to have it be like, and it makes sense. It's like some weird Lovecraftian like horror droid. So like to have it be from a different galaxy makes sense. And how it like he's quote unquote working for the Empire, but not really. Like as soon as that Admiral Screed guy can't provide what the Great Heap wants, he's like, nope, stupid, puny Imperial scum. You know, like he just turns on him.
Yep.
So there's basically 3 main arcs of the show and then an hour-long TV special. The first arc is called The Battle Against Size Fromm. And that Size Fromm is like him and his son are like these gangsters who are the incompetent gangsters who are the bad guys in that arc. Then there's The Pirates and the Prince, which takes place mostly on the planet Tamazan. Then there's the whole Runestone arc, Uncharted Space, it's called. And then the hour-long special, The Great Heap. By the way, on Disney Plus, it looks like they ripped the hour-long special straight off somebody's VHS recording from like TV.
Yes. Yes, it does. You're like, it almost, especially in the very beginning, it almost has that like the seeking error where it's trying to vertically align or horizontally align the show. And I was like, oh, wow, this is, it wasn't 80s. But, it's funny because my daughter was watching, it's like, and she was like, is this older than the other show? Or it's like, no, this comes after.
Yeah.
It's the same guy, Mungo.
Yeah.
Master Mungo.
Master Mungo. Did you have a favorite out of the story arcs?
I kind of like the first one. It was just so fun. 80s. It's such an 80s cartoon plot line, story, and it was all very Star Wars. And I got to be honest, the second one I kind of phased in and out a lot, and the third one was hard to keep track of what was going on because it seemed like every episode there was a bunch of stuff that happened between the episodes, and you're like, okay, we're in a completely different location. We've got all the same cast of characters, but there's some other problem or thing that they're causing or doing or I don't get it.
It seemed more episodic than the other one.
Yes.
Or almost like each episode was trying to be self-contained.
Yeah.
Like, maybe they got some note from like the studio where it's like, hey, we need this to be more episodic so that kids don't have to follow a storyline from week to week or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and you saw a lot of that with the 80s cartoons, but a lot of the reason that the 80s cartoons were that way, like Transformers and G.I. Joe and,
Turtles.
Turtles and He-Man, is because they were selling toys. And so they had to set up the episodes in the right order so that they could match up with, the toy coming out in the stores. And so a lot of times you got like plot lines that made like no sense in order. Like, I think if you try and watch the Transformers first season, it makes like absolutely no sense like in order because of that.
Yeah. Is there like now like a release order versus plot order that people have made,
I wouldn't put it past them. I would bet there was. But you find a lot of sort of like within the Transformer fandom, a lot of people who just sort of shrug off the original cartoon because of how bad it is at that. And they sort of focus in on the later cartoons, especially Beast Wars, which had a fantastic overarching plot line.
Yeah, and that was my introduction to Transformers. It was Beast Wars, and I had the toys. I was a collector. Yeah, I had 2 Megatrons.
Oh wow!
The dinosaur, his dinosaur form and his dragon form. Now we're just talking about cartoons.
Yeah. But see, and that's what was so like weird about it for this show, because they weren't selling toys with this show. It wasn't like you could go buy a Mungo Blabber Blaster. I can't even remember. Baoboba.
Yeah, the Great Heap would have made a great toy.
Yeah, he would have. Yeah, that would have been great. And like, it's funny because you figure George Lucas would have capitalized on that because he made so many of those toys.
Right. Yeah. And then another thing that sort of, I remember in terms of things that have been relevant later, I remember the only time like people like the fandom was really talking about this show was in the run up to The Force Awakens because of how similar the pirate's name is to Kylo Ren.
Yes.
Kybo Ren.
Kybo Ren.
Yeah. Kybo Ren Cha is actually his full name, apparently, but they mostly just call him Kybo Ren in the show. So when it was revealed that the villain of the new trilogy was going to be called Kylo Ren, then the show became relevant for like a week, but then everyone forgot about it again.
Yeah. Like, they bear very little similarity to each other beyond having Kylo in their name.
Very strange, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that arc is probably my favorite just on pure nostalgia grounds because of how much I watched it over and over again. I kind of liked that villain from the beginning of it, though, that gangster who employs Yorpo. I wish we had seen more of that guy. I thought he was like a very funny 80s villain.
He was.
And he's got the weird thing that he does. He can make that piercing tone, which knocks you out. And yeah, he's got vampire fangs for some reason. So does Admiral Screed, actually.
Right.
Yeah. That was
weird. There were several characters that had vampire fangs. You're like, why? I loved how that story arc begins, and it's kind of funny. You don't really get it till the end of the first story arc and the beginning of the second, but like R2 and or at least not R2, but more C-3PO. I think he's always searching for a master. Like, he doesn't seem like he's complete without having a master, and so. Yeah. Like at the end of the first arc, they jettison themselves out of the ship because they want to give freedom to their at that point former masters.
Right, to be employed, because they don't allow droids at their workplace, apparently.
Yeah. And then like we see them at the beginning of the second arc, and they're like, well, the agency sent us here to be, work at this diner, and C-3PO is all like, oh, I'm going to be a translator, and R2's going to be a mechanic. This is going to be great. And then they both turn out to be waiters. They're terrible at it.
Oh my gosh, yeah, they get fired like pretty much immediately. Like, there was all that great like what was like the names of the 3PO kind of trying to keep track of the orders was kind of funny. All the different names for things,
which I was like, "You're a robot! Like, what? How are you having memory problems here?
That's
like,
true. Yeah.
Why can't you just like record it and play it back?"
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they get. I wouldn't. R2 suggests they put themselves up for auction, and 3PO's like, "I would never stoop so low," and then they put themselves up for auction.
Which is another kind of weird. I don't know. It's just this weird thing. I guess the droids in this universe need have a fundamental. It's like a law of robotics thing. Thou must have a master kind of a thing.
Yeah. And remember when later when they're on that other planet, I think it's in the first arc, where the droids have to line up in a separate queue at immigration and customs.
Yes.
It feels like it's discrimination that we have to wait in a separate line. And I'm like, like, it's very funny.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I don't even know how that works. Like in customs, like does a droid count as like something you have to declare, or is it
like property?
Is its own person? Does it have a passport? Why would it have a passport? Why wouldn't it have a passport? Like I don't
You get these like glimpses into how it works, but it doesn't quite all make sense.
Right. Like you try and put all the pieces together and you're like, I feel like I have both too many and not enough at the same time.
Yeah.
I thought I bought a puzzle set for the, dogs playing poker, but Jesus is in the picture. So I don't understand where I went wrong. Like,
I think that happened to me once where I bought a puzzle and there were part of it was like pieces for some completely different puzzle, and I'm like, great. I can't put it together.
Yeah, I just spent 40 minutes putting together the wrong puzzle.
But yeah, that's what Star Wars is like sometimes. I appreciate the effort this show goes into to provide us with different kinds of humor. There's a lot of slapstick humor because it's a kid's cartoon, and I'm a sucker for slapstick, so I like that stuff. There was some wordplay humor. There was some funny banter between R2 and 3PO, like lots of great stuff. And I also liked just the different kinds of masters they went through. Like the first guy is like a land speeder racer.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get the miner's son who wants to be a pilot, and then you get like the galactic entrepreneur / trader.
Yeah, whatever that guy was. Working for the Foundation. I mean, the Balboa Trading Company.
I can see him working for the Foundation. Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. I actually thought that those From Gang guys in the first arc were pretty funny.
I enjoyed them.
Yeah.
Like they were the good, like
good.
It was a good, right. Like they were just incompetent and funny kind of all around. They sort of a Larry Curly Moe act play between Tiggy and his quote unquote bodyguard and then the father.
Right. Yeah. And when I told my brother what their plan was to like assassinate Jabba the Hutt and all the other gangsters and take over the underworld, and my brother's like, whoa, that's ambitious. And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't work out well for them.
Not at all. Like how bad does your plane have to be if it gets totally wrecked by two speed junkie racers and their droids and a random girl that they picked up and got involved somehow?
Yeah, who works for the rebellion.
Right. Yes.
But but apparently like the rebellion is less interested in fighting the Empire as it is in taking out. But I guess a gang war would not in the Outer Rim wouldn't do well for the rebellion either, but still, it was just strange.
Right.
I thought we would see more of the rebels throughout the series, but we didn't really.
Yeah, it's interesting because you only get them really in that first arc, and you only really get the Empire in the third arc. Like
right.
there's no real. It is very much an Outer Rim's bag of stories.
Oh yeah, Oh, and in the second arc, you mentioned Jafar earlier. The villain of the first part of that, Zatek Cha, is basically Jafar, even dresses like him. And he's a vizier, just like Jafar.
Like, the minute he said he was like deposed by his vizier, I'm like, oh, this is Aladdin in space.
He dresses like him, and he's like, he needs the scepter. Kind of reminds me of Jafar's, like that big staff that he has.
The snake staff.
The snake staff, yeah.
The hypnotism staff, yeah.
By the way, I liked a lot of the creatures in this too. He throws them to that thing. I forget what it was, but like R2 soothes it by removing parasites from its skin, which I thought was neat.
Yeah.
And they get thrown into that pit to get eaten by that purple people eater. Big purple monster. So
yeah. And there's the creature that C-3PO imitates, and turns out it was he was imitating a male's mating call, and he got a female. Female one actually showed up.
Oh, that thing that looked like an elephant.
Rampaged through the thing and kind of saved the day.
Yeah, that was so strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of great aliens.
And that the dog, the digging creature from I guess that was from the movie or the special, the hour-long special.
Mm-hmm.
That there was kind of a dog, but it dug underground and could take the master with it. That was a pretty cool little.
Right, yeah, it could dig underground like Bugs Bunny, where it makes those little like trails of disturbed earth after it.
Yep.
Oh, yes, it's so great. Yeah, see, like, and that's the thing. Yeah, I think this is still like entertaining for both adults and kids. If you have like. Folks out there, if you have kids and you haven't seen this, watch this with your kids. You'll probably have a fun time if they're at all into Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, and that's like, you see a lot of cartoons these days are less, or not, I shouldn't say less episodic, but they usually have overarching plot lines also going on in them, which keeps it more interesting for the parents involved. And I think, that was kind of absent a lot in the 80s and early 90s cartoons. I wouldn't say the late 90s. We could probably credit Batman, the animated series, with really selling the fact that, middle schoolers can pay attention to an overarching plot line. And to studios and that kind of branching out from there in the cartoons. I can remember very vividly in college, I had friends who would watch kids' cartoons that were their target audience was, under the age of 13, because they actually had overarching storylines and they had jokes in there for the parents and whatnot. And I think this, Droids is kind of a real gem from the, mid 80s era where that really wasn't a thing. and really it has those plot lines that you can follow. Most of what the characters decide to do makes some semblance of sense. Although not always, but most of the time.
Yeah, sometimes they seem to reverse their decisions like on a whim, where it's like, we're going to do this, and then they actually go and do the opposite thing. I was like, wait, didn't you just say you were going to... And I was like, it's very strange. Like,
yeah, that has happened a couple of times. You're like, wait a minute, what? Why are we doing the opposite of what you said?
What you said you were going to do, yeah. It would almost be like if in like Scooby-Doo they had said, let's stick together, and then they all split up for some reason, which I think happened.
That happened. I think that happens more than once. Fairly regular.
Yeah, it almost reminds me of a Hanna-Barbera production in a way. It's totally not, but it in some ways it does.
I will say it. And that I think is the thing that really balances against the more kind of adult cartoons of that era, like Heavy Metal, is it still has a lot of the kind of more Hanna-Barbera, flailing of limbs and running along, and the droid is somehow just as flexible as everybody else, and he gets. I love how many different poses C-3PO gets stuck in. with his arms
funny,
like completely up and his legs halfway done, and it just randomly bounces in. Of course, saves the day or unsaves the day at any given moment's notice. Works very well as a Deus Ex Machina.
Droid Ex Machina. Yeah.
Right. And so I think because of that, it makes the show that, Hanna-Barbera-ness of it makes the show a lot more palatable and fun and enjoyable.
Yeah, and I've heard rumors, not of a revival, but of some other Droids animated thing that was in production, unless it was among that stuff they just quietly canceled and didn't bother to tell anybody. But,
yeah, there was a lot of that.
Because, I remember, a few years ago when they announced a ton of stuff on the slate, there was supposed to be some animated Droids property.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, hey, maybe a revival of the Droid. It even had a similar logo. But I've never heard anything about it since. So, I mean, there's a lot of potential there, given how much of a focus there's been on droids in recent Star Wars production. I mean, the prequels, in all the prequels content, all the enemies are slapsticky droids. So.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and every show you got somehow the best droid ever, right? Like no matter what the show was, it was the newest best droid ever. And
right.
It's just finally when they got to Andor and it was B2 emo. It was like
where he was always broken.
Yeah, so this is the best adult droid ever made. Like all the other droids are for little kids and stuff, and this is oh no, this one was made for us.
Yeah, I love that thing where he's where it drains his battery to lie because it takes more computing processing power to invent a falsehood. So in the middle of him lying, he shuts down because he used all his battery life trying to lie. That was so brilliant.
Yeah, it was oh, that was solid. That was so spot on.
Or when he refuses to talk to Cassian, so he just pretends he's recharging.
Yeah,
power down. See, there's so much potential with the droid characters. You could do a whole animated series. It doesn't have to be R2 and 3PO. Oh, they could do a whole show just with Chopper and what's his name, the former Imperial droid that they had.
Oh,
what was that
yeah.
I always forget his name. But yeah.
It'd be fun would be Chopper and Boba Fett's droid from this show.
Oh, yeah.
That would be that's free, Disney. That's free. Just make free, it. Yeah. Just make the show. Just do it.
Yeah.
Chopper and that guy's misadventures prior to the rebellion.
The one thing that threw me off though is that Boba Fett is he's not in his normal colors. He's in pastel blue and brown.
Yeah. Well, I think he's closer. I want to say that was sort of the color palette they used in the holiday special.
Yeah.
Because that's the first time he appears is in the cartoon on that.
Mm-hmm.
That the kid's watching.
That's right. Yeah.
But this happens after Empire. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they did that.
Or at least it came out after Empire.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I would like to see them reference this more, reference some of the characters, the locations, I always like when they just, scatter in Easter eggs to stuff, and it's just oh yeah, because it just makes the universe seem vaster and more fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I really want to see runestones show up somewhere.
Right. Yeah. I wonder, because I've not read any of the Dr. Aphra comics, and she's kind of an Indiana Jones type of fortune and glory, like thief person. If anybody listening has read those comics, like I wonder if she's like gone on a heist to get runestones or something, because that would be perfect for her character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she has, I think she has 2 crazy droid companions too. One's like an R2 unit, one's a protocol droid, but they're like messed up.
Yeah. Oh, you know what would make a great droid show? Is the droid from Ahsoka, the 1,000-year-old.
Yes.
What is his name? Hu Yang. Yeah. Let's just see his stories. Like, it's got 1,000 years to play with, guys.
Right. Yeah. Like, I want to see, like, who you could do, like, a whole series of shorts, like Hu Yang through the centuries, you know, like, that would be really cool. Yeah.
That one's also free.
Yes, yeah.
Just have to credit us.
Free Disney. Free. Yeah. So yeah, and next, I believe our next episode, we're going to talk about Ewoks, the sister show to this one.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, I've only seen one arc of that show because we had it on VHS, and that one has 2 seasons, like 2 full seasons.
2 full seasons? Okay.
Yeah. Apparently, it did. Let me just check. It did last. Yeah, it definitely lasted long because apparently they used to air together as part of the Ewoks and Droids Adventure Hour. But then Ewoks became on its own as the all-new Ewoks.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
What was all new about it? I don't know.
Were the Ewoks all new? Was it?
I don't think so. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that show's cool because there's like no humans in it, basically. You just get to see all the crazy Endor characters, so that's fun. But yeah, do you have any closing thoughts on Droids? The Adventures
I'm trying to think.
3PO?
You know, they do the normal, 1980s era cartoon moral lessons, which I thought was kind of nice to see. They have the whole, friends and family are more important than treasure, in the third story arc that goes on. You have in the special. I'm absolutely sure the moral of the story was it's always a good idea to help people in need, more or less. Like, just because you can escape with all the treasure doesn't mean you should. I think there's a lot of like helping people out of the goodness of your heart. I guess even if you don't have a heart, in the case of C-3PO and R2-D2, but it's all good. It's all stuff I really like. I like how it both adds stuff to all of the questions that kind of pool around the droids and their status in the universe and their, what are they considered as, and a lot of people are like, well, they're pets. And then you have the ones like C-3PO and some of the other droids, which are almost autonomous in this show, in how they operate and how they work and so many crazy droids in this show. Ones that you're like, what, who would build that?
I want to know the status of androids, because in the Tamazan arc, the prince Manjolpa is in disguise as an android when he's lost his memories, and people treat him like dirt. So I'm like, what's up with androids that they get like just kicked around by people?
It's just a lousy android. Kicks him again.
Yeah.
It still brings up like, what is a cyborg and why is it human cyborg relations? C-3PO and
oh yeah.
I like how it adds stuff to help answer those questions, but not enough, and then also poses further questions in the midst of it. But I think the most interesting to me is kind of the all encompassing quest that 3PO has for needing a master, but a good master, right? Like even when he gets more or less taken captive by the Heap, and the Heap says, "I'm your new master now," he doesn't act that way, right? He still goes. He finds Mungo, who's imprisoned, and he goes and does what Mungo wants him to do, treating Mungo like he's still his master. And so there's this obvious recognition in at least C-3PO of what a good master is and what a bad master is, and who deserves my service. I think that kind of lends itself to the whole droids being people. Like that's probably the most compelling case I can find out there, because that's a very human problem, is figuring out who, because we live in a world where the vast majority of us are not the master. And even those people who think they are probably aren't, there's always larger forces at work. And we have to ask ourselves, well, who do I serve? Right. And, as just like Star-Lord says, oh, what am I supposed to say? Jesus Christ. The answer is yes. You're always looking for the best master. And I think that lends a lot of credence to their whole really sentient beings.
It's like the Ignatian concept of the two banners, right? You're either under the banner of Christ or the banner of Satan. Like the song says, right? You've got to serve somebody, and even like we see that in the Star Wars movies, even when 3PO is forced into serving Jabba the Hutt, when Luke shows up, he still calls him Master Luke.
Yep.
Master Luke, you're standing on, so like he still has that recognition of Luke as his true master, because he's someone worthy of, like you said, worthy of his service, not this slimy slug gangster Jabba the Hutt,
Yeah. But it's funny because it's like 3PO knows that, but the droid who works in like the droid service department in Jabba's palace doesn't, right? He is like perfectly okay with being Jabba's like henchman.
Right. Or the guy the torture one who works for Jabba and then later for Boba Fett.
Yep.
And at first doesn't understand why Boba Fett is more merciful than Jabba the Hutt. Remember, like when the Gamorreans come in, he's like, their tortured squeals will send a piercing message to your enemies, Lord Fett. And he's like, I don't torture people. And he's like, what? You don't torture people? But Lord Fett,
it's like, whoa, that's not how this is done.
And his like only purpose is to torture people.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's funny. I liked pretty much all the characters, as strange and weird as they all were. All the humans, all the aliens, and the bad guys were comically bad. And the Empire was the Empire, right? Even when they showed up and they're like, your stuff is my stuff now. Kind of a.
Yep.
And it's funny, it's like he, in every episode you have that, what is his name? Kong or Kang or Koon, something Koon, like that.
Yeah,
Koon,
right.
yeah. The tyrant, semi-lord of possibly one of the runestone planets in the Sith cluster. I don't know. I could never figure out what his actual title was. And he's always working with this Imperial, the Admiral.
Screed.
Yeah, Screed. But like every interaction, you're just like, Koon, you're an idiot. Screed's just gonna like take your stuff, man. Why are you like doing this?
Yeah, it was a very Lord Zed and Rita kind of dysfunctional relationship.
Yes. Yeah.
Or like he was Goldar or something, just getting kicked around, like.
Yeah.
Or like it was a very Krang and Shredder kind of relationship. Actually.
Yes. Yeah, it was. Yep.
Where it's like you have the big overlord and like, Shredder, you incompetent fool, because it messes up,
Yep.
Yeah, another great 80s trope. Just set in the Star Wars universe.
Yep.
So yeah, look forward next time for some more 80s fun with Ewoks. But before we go, we would like to take a moment to thank our great patrons, including Claire R., David G., Jan C., Brent B., and Rebecca L. Their generous donations help us to create the secrets of Star Wars and all of our shows here at StarQuest. And you can join them at sqpn.com/give. And now we'd like to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the Droid animated series? You can let us know by sending us an email to starwars@sqpn.com. You can hit us up on our social media pages or leave a comment on our channel at the StarQuest Discord server, which you can find at sqpn.com/discord. Until next time, Pat Mason, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Wars.
You're very welcome, Thomas. Thank you for having me on, and I'm cautiously optimistic the Ewoks will be good too.
So am I, actually. I'm kind of worried. I'm Thomas Salerno, and thank you for listening to Secrets of Star Wars on Star Trek. What, did I say Star Trek? What?
You said Star Trek, yeah.
It's been a long day, folks. I'm Thomas Salerno. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Wars on Star Trek.
Here's another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy. The Secrets of Technology. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/technology.